Hello and welcome to Starbound's second channel. My name is Gabriel the Bibi Capaldi and I'll be your narrator today. But before we get into today's story, please do check down below that you are subscribed to the channel. It's 100% free and helps us pop up on your feed a bit more often. Yala watched the dismissive flick of Kragax's tail and felt a complex mix of irritation and anticipation ripple through his feathers. The Soderian's reaction was exactly what he had expected. Contempt about humanity, wrapped in a veneer of professional assessment. The High Council chamber of the Concordant of Aligned Worlds stretched around them, its walls hewn from a massive asteroid at the neutral boundary of Block 1 territory. The ceiling soared 50 feet high with minimal ornamentation, utilitarian in its design. At the center, a circular table of polished black stone gleamed with subtle neural interface nodes embedded at each position. The chamber's dim lighting favored Drixian vision, while challenging Yala's avian sight, another small disadvantage he had to overcome.
"The humans?"
Kragak barked, his broad shoulders, powerfully built frame shifting as he leaned forward. The rough, scaled skin of his burnt orange and brown body seemed to darken with contempt. His blunt snout revealed visible teeth as he spoke, and his vertical-pupiled deep green eyes narrowed beneath heavy brow ridges.
"You must be molting, Hitharian. Those bipeds barely understand gravitic propulsion."
Yala's amber eyes narrowed slightly, the only outward sign of his frustration. Standing just 5 feet tall with his slender frame, he knew his short, dense feathers in deep navy blue bristled almost imperceptibly. He straightened his formal attire of layered fabrics in muted colors, a habitual gesture when gathering thoughts. His vestigial wings, appearing as elaborate shoulder structures, remained perfectly still through force of will.
"Earth's intelligence is young,"
added Drix, the lean, 8-foot-tall Drixian observing from across the table. His smooth, snake-like scales in dark green contrasted with the pale yellow of his underbelly. His completely black, recessed eyes revealed nothing as they fixed on Yala. No visible ears on his narrow face, only heat-sensing pits along his jawline.
"Their weaponry would be ineffective against Microvian shields."
Yala tilted his hawk-like head, his curved ivory beak catching the light. He had spent years studying humanity from afar, cataloguing their rapid technological evolution, analyzing their fractious politics, and most importantly, witnessing their startling capacity for rapid change. Yet here, in this chamber where the temperature fluctuated as the environmental system struggled to balance the needs of reptilian and avian biology, his colleagues saw only primitive beings unworthy of galactic notice. "They lack our technology, yes," Yala conceded, activating the neural connection that would allow him to share data directly with his colleagues' minds. In their shared mental space, he manifested a detailed virtual screen of Earth's solar system. "But they learn fast. No species in recorded history has advanced from atmospheric flight to spacefaring in a single century." The statement hung in the chamber as he expanded the virtual screen to show a timeline of human military history. He created a series of interconnected mental displays showing warfare evolution across centuries, each screen showcasing key technological leaps with precise timestamps.
"Impressive for primitives,"
Kragak said, his thick, muscular tail thumping against the floor in irritation.
"But irrelevant in galactic warfare."
Yala tilted his head, a gesture that among his kind indicated deep consideration. He had anticipated every objection. He had prepared counters for each dismissal. What he couldn't fully explain, even to himself, was the depth of his conviction that humanity represented something unique in the galaxy, a potential ally unlike any other. Kragak dismissed Yala's screens with a mental gesture, replacing them with his own virtual display.
"What about the Vulcrins? Their planetary defenses are already compatible with our systems."
"The Vulcrins have already declared neutrality," Yalar countered, feeling his feathers rustle involuntarily. Their philosophical stance
can be changed with proper incentives,
Drix interrupted, his exceptionally long fingers with suction-like pads making a dismissive gesture.
Their culture easily accepts violence and wars.
Yalar felt frustration building in his chest. The Vulcrins will not break neutrality. They've maintained it through 3 previous galactic conflicts.
Then the Jeruvians,
Kragak pressed, pushing a new virtual screen showing Jeruvian technological demonstrations. His claws scraped together in impatience.
Their gravitational manipulation technology
is precisely why Block 2 is already courting them, Yalar replied, his voice rising slightly as he swiped a gesture to replace the screen with intelligence data, showing diplomatic exchanges between Jeruvian elders and Mecrovian High Command. His emotional state caused the mental screens to flicker slightly despite his attempts to maintain clarity. His beak clicked softly, a sign of agitation he struggled to suppress. Drix, who had been observing the exchange with characteristic stillness, finally spoke.
The Terrans have never engaged in interstellar diplomacy. They are an unknown variable.
Exactly. Yalar seized on this point. Block 2 would never anticipate such an alliance. Kragak reluctantly examined the human military simulations Yalar had prepared. His massive clawed hand scrolled through virtual tactical displays showing battlefield scenarios with human forces using unconventional tactics. After several moments, he grudgingly acknowledged,
Their tactics are chaotic, unpredictable.
Humans can fight, Yalar explained, carefully enhancing screens showing military exercises in space. They've even perfected their technology to fight superior forces. Drix conjured multiple anatomical screens in their shared mental space.
Their physical form is unimpressive. Limited sensory capacity, cannot see heat, no natural weaponry.
Yet they've dominated their planet's apex predators, Yalar countered. Their endurance exceeds most known species. Their term, persistence hunting, describes pursuing prey until it collapses from exhaustion. Kragak made a dismissive sound, his scales darkening slightly.
Primitive technique.
It works, Yalar insisted, feeling his feathers tense and relax repeatedly, a sign of deep conviction among his species. And it's indicative of their mentality. Drix remained unmoved.
No strategic value. Their planet offers no resources we cannot acquire elsewhere. Their technology is rudimentary. Their military forces are negligible for space battles.
Yalar had anticipated this assessment. He projected a strategic virtual display showing Earth's isolated position in a galactic context. Then, manipulated the screen to reveal potential attack vectors with animated flight paths. Probability metrics appeared as floating numbers beside each route. Consider their location, he said, noticing both aliens focusing intently on specific screens. The first genuine attention his proposal had received. It creates a potential flanking position against the Mecrovian supply lines. Kragax's tail moved thoughtfully as he zoomed in on a particular route.
An unexpected vector.
Drix's attention shifted rapidly between multiple screens, analyzing possibilities. Precisely, Yalar continued, feeling the slight shift in the chamber's energy. The humans' value isn't in their current capabilities, but in their potential for the future. Block 2's AIs won't account for their involvement.
A distraction at best,
Drix conceded.
Though diversionary tactics have merit.
After a long silence, during which Yalar could almost see the rapid calculations occurring behind Drix's black eyes. The Drixian spoke.
The probability of human effectiveness remains low, however.
He paused, something rare for his species.
The probability of securing a more advantageous alliance before hostilities commence is lower still. So, we reduced to recruiting primitives,
Kragak grumbled, his scales darkening further in displeasure. We're gaining an unpredictable element that Block 2 will underestimate, Yalar countered, just as you both did initially. Drix fixed his black eyes on Yalar with unusual intensity.
You seem personally invested in this species, Hitharian.
I've invested in victory, Yalar replied carefully, aware that his true fascination with humans and the friendships he had cultivated over years of observation were perhaps too personal to share. Conventional approaches will lead to conventional outcomes against Block 2's superior numbers. We need unconventional allies. Drix remained unnaturally still for several moments, even by his species' standards.
Very well. We will extend diplomatic overtures to Earth, but the technological exchange will be gradual, enough to make them useful, not enough to make them threatening.
Kragak growled, his displeasure evident.
I will assign a military liaison, someone expendable.
I will lead the diplomatic mission personally, Yalar stated, straightening his posture, his feathers aligning perfectly. Human psychology is particular. They respond best to what they perceive as respect. Drix fixed him with unusual intensity.
You believe the humans will exceed our expectations?
It wasn't a question. I believe that underestimating them would be our first mistake, Yalar replied, his heart rate elevated with both excitement and apprehension. Block 2's error will be failing to recruit them before us. As the meeting concluded, Yalar felt the weight of what he had set in motion. The Concordant had no idea what they were about to unleash, but then, perhaps neither did he. 6 standard cycles later, Yalar stood in the hastily retrofitted central meeting chamber of Space Station New Dawn, Earth's modular orbital platform that had been cobbled together from various national contributions. The artificial gravity in the rotating residential sections felt slightly off to his avian physiology, but he kept his discomfort hidden beneath a diplomat's composure. Ambassador Daniel Reeves studied him from across the table. The human was in his mid-50s, with a lean build that still carried a military bearing despite his civilian attire. His silver-grey hair was cut short, his face clean-shaven with deep lines around his eyes that suggested both frequent smiles and significant stress. The formal blue suit he wore carried a subtle silver Earth emblem on the label. "Ambassador Yalar," Daniel began, extending his hand, then awkwardly withdrawing it as he remembered the briefing on Hitharian customs. "Welcome to Earth's Orbital Station 1. I must admit, this is unprecedented in human history." Yalar offered a slight bow of his head. "Ambassador Reeves, I appreciate the accommodations you've made on such short notice. The Concordant of Aligned Worlds recognizes the significance of this exchange." He noted how Daniel's heart rate remained steady despite the enormous pressure of first contact. Impressive self-control for a species often characterized by emotional volatility. "I won't pretend we're not surprised by your interest," Daniel continued. "Until recently, we had no indication the Concordant even acknowledged our existence." Yalar activated his personal neural interface, which had been adapted for transmission to the primitive human screens. As visual data of the galactic political situation appeared with Earth's position highlighted, he carefully explained Block 2's expansion and increasing aggression. He deliberately avoided terminology that would paint humanity as primitive, though the technological gulf between them was obvious to both parties. "We seek allies with unique perspectives," Ylar stated, watching Daniel's eyes narrow at the strategic implications. "We are willing to pay for it with knowledge." "So, after ignoring humanity for decades, you suddenly remember us?" Daniel's slight smile did little to soften his words. "Forgive my skepticism, but it looks to me you're desperate for alliances." Ylar felt his feathers bristle slightly. "Your skepticism is warranted. I will be direct. The Concordant previously considered Earth too technologically undeveloped for meaningful alliance. I have argued otherwise." "You've argued we're more useful than previously thought?" Daniel replied. "Not exactly flattering." "I've argued you're underestimated," Ylar corrected. "There's a distinction." The large screen behind Daniel activated, showing a panel of global leaders from major nations. Ylar carefully explained the technological exchange proposal, emphasizing defensive technologies would be prioritized. He stressed technological transfer rather than dependency. The UN Secretary-General leaned forward, her expression grave. "Ambassador Ylar, while we appreciate this opportunity, we must ask, what guarantees do we have that Earth won't simply become a sacrificial distinction in your war?" Ylar had anticipated this question. He straightened to his full height, feathers settling into perfect alignment, a posture of formal commitment among his species. "I will personally oversee the technology transfer and remain here as liaison. My life will be as vulnerable as yours." He noticed the surprised exchanges among the human leaders. Such a direct personal commitment was apparently unexpected. After hours of negotiation, Daniel's expression had shifted from skepticism to cautious optimism. "Your willingness to remain here makes a compelling statement about your commitment." "We accept these initial terms and welcome you as our guest, Ambassador Ylar," the UN Secretary-General announced, her image flickering slightly on the screen. Ylar experienced unexpected relief. The mission had been accomplished more easily than anticipated, though he noticed calculating looks from the human military advisors that he found intriguing. As the leaders disconnected, Daniel studied him with renewed interest. "I suspect there's more you haven't shared about why the Concordant finally noticed us." "And I suspect there's more to humanity than appears in your official records," Ylar countered. Daniel's smile turned genuine for the first time. "Then we'll both have discoveries to make during your stay." Ylar noted the human's heart rate finally fluctuating, showing authentic emotion rather than the diplomatic mask he had maintained throughout the negotiations. 1 month later, Ylar walked through the newly constructed lunar base that combined human architecture with concordant technology. The artificial gravity generators created proper weight for both human and Hitharian biology. But there were subtle differences in the environment that told him humans had already begun modifying the transferred technology. "We've found your propulsion systems fascinating, though honestly quite conservative in design approach," said Lai Wei, the tall, brilliant Chinese physicist who now headed the integration project. She guided him through a vast hangar bay where prototype vessels were under construction beneath a transparent dome that revealed Earth hanging in the black sky. Ylar tilted his head in confusion. "Conservative? They're based on centuries of refinement." "Yeah, refinement along a single technological path." Lai Wei explained with barely concealed excitement. "We're exploring some alternative approaches that might interest you." Ylar felt the first twinge of unease at her implications. Human engineers were talking about improving virtual interface systems with tactile feedback mechanisms not present in the original concordant technology, evidence of rapid construction and expansion beyond the original blueprints was everywhere. He excused himself from Lai Wei's presence and prepared a status report for Kragak and Drix. He carefully framed the rapid human progress as confirmation of his predictions while editing the video to avoid showing certain human modifications. He justified technical changes as local adaptations necessary for human physiology. As he finished his report, Yala accidentally accessed a restricted database. He glimpsed weapons designs that appeared frighteningly advanced and saw simulations of hybrid technology with alarming capabilities. Before he could investigate further, security personnel approached with polite but firm redirection. His feathers remained fluffed in agitation for hours afterward. Daniel later offered a vague explanation about a misunderstanding, but Yala's unease only deepened. 6 months later, after the initial technology transfer, Yala stood on the massive converted oil platform in the Pacific Ocean that now served as a marine testing facility. Submarine launch bays extended deep below the waterline, and massive structures that had been constructed above the ocean surface. Military vessels from multiple nations ran coordinated exercises that showed a level of international cooperation unprecedented in human history. Commander Mohammed, an imposing Egyptian man with a cybernetic eye implant that represented technology not included in the concordant transfer, explained the submarine fleet applications of shield technology. "We've solved the radiation leakage issue in the shield harmonics," he mentioned casually. "Our engineers found an elegant solution." Yala blinked rapidly in response. "That issue has plagued concordant vessels for decades." Admiral Mohammed shrugged. "Sometimes fresh perspectives help. I believe you mentioned in your initial proposal—" The weapons test that followed demonstrated hybrid missile technology combining human and concordant principles. The yield exceeded estimates by a significant margin, obliterating the test target beyond recognition. While the human military observers appeared unsurprised by the results, Yala felt his feathers flatten against his body in an instinctive threat response. When he requested access to production statistics, he received heavily redacted reports citing security protocols. His attempts to access the neural network with his personal device revealed that humans had established an independent, secure system far more advanced than what should have been possible in such a short time. Yala sent an encrypted message to Drix expressing concerns without details. The humans' rate of adaptation exceeded anything he had anticipated, and, while part of him felt vindicated in his assessment of their potential, another part grew increasingly alarmed. 1 year after the technology transfer began, Yala found himself in an underground North American command center that extended deep into a mountain. The vast command theater contained global monitoring systems where hundreds of personnel coordinated worldwide operations. Fully integrated human concordant technology with significant human improvements was now standard, and the neural interface system had been adapted for human use across all military personnel. Yala noted with glowing concern that his access credentials had been noticeably limited, and his quarters were now subtle but definitely monitored. The transformation was complete. Ship production had exceeded concordant estimates by 300%. Technology integration and improvement had gone beyond anything anticipated, and the previously fractious nations of Earth had formed a unified command structure. "We didn't just arm them," Yala realized with growing alarm. "We unified them." The crisis came suddenly. Daniel, now wearing diplomatic insignia indicating elevated status but still clearly civilian, called an emergency meeting with Strategic Command. The military leadership gathered to address a concordant emergency communication. Bloc 2 forces had begun a major offensive earlier than expected, and the Concordant was requesting immediate human support deployment. "The Concordant is requesting immediate deployment of our defense forces," Daniel announced, his expression grave as virtual screens showed Macrovian fleets advancing across multiple sectors. "All battle groups are at ready status." Fleet Admiral Takarashi responded. Lunar Fleet can launch within 3 hours.
3 hours?
Yalar's voice rose in shock. You have lunar battle groups already assembled? Daniel met his eyes directly. Ambassador, we've been ready for 2 months. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. On screens around them, hundreds of vessels were being activated, launch sequences initiated globally. The weapon systems went far beyond anything in the transfer protocols, and the scale of the response vastly exceeded concordant expectations. For the first time, Yalar was granted access to the full battle plan. The advanced virtual screen interface displayed human strategy against Block 2, and multiple interconnected mental screens revealed scope and aggression beyond anything discussed during their year of alliance. These weren't merely defensive actions, but a full offensive campaign based on detailed intelligence on Block 2's weaknesses that humans had somehow gathered without Yalar's knowledge.
"What have we unleashed?"
he whispered to himself, horrified yet fascinated. He remembered Kragax's dismissive attitude towards human capabilities, and Drix's cold probability calculations that hadn't accounted for human adaptation rates. As deployment began, a mixture of pride and terror filled him. They had no idea what was coming for them, neither Block 2 nor his own concordant allies. Yalar's feathers remained unnaturally still as the concordant flagship, the Hunter, loomed before his shuttle view screen. The massive command vessel was positioned safely away from the projected front line, its metallic architecture favoring Drixian aesthetics, all smooth, efficient lines devoid of ornamentation. The polished hull reflected distant starlight, making the vessel appear to shimmer against the void of space. Unlike the human vessels he'd grown accustomed to over the past year, this ship represented the stagnant perfection of concordant design philosophy, refined over centuries, elegant, and utterly predictable. Yalar wondered if that predictability would prove fatal in the coming conflict. A security escort met him immediately upon docking, their formality barely masking suspicion. He was guided directly to the command center, aware that his year among humans had changed him in ways his former colleagues would notice. His gait was slightly different, his gestures more expressive, his thinking less linear. He had absorbed human mannerisms without intending to, just as the humans had absorbed concordant technology and improved upon it in ways that still astonished him. The command center doors slid open silently, revealing a vast chamber with Drixian architecture dominating the aesthetic, angular and precise. Neural interface nodes studded the walls and ceiling, constantly streaming tactical data to those connected to the system. The circular command table at the center was similar to the war meeting chamber, but enhanced for battle operations, glowing with holographic displays and data streams. Both Kragak and Drix were already positioned at the command table, their body language signaling agitation even before conversation began. Yalar noted increased security personnel stationed around the perimeter of the room, their attention focused more on him than external threats.
"Finally, the prodigal diplomat returns,"
Kragak greeted him, tail lashing against the floor in undisguised irritation.
"A full concordant year embedded with primitives. Was the hospitality so pleasant you forgot your actual allies? Do you enjoy mammalian company that much? Is that some weird kink?"
Yalar kept his feathers carefully controlled, suppressing the instinctive reaction to bristle at the provocation. My mission parameters were to ensure humanity's effective integration into our alliance.
"Your communications have been infrequent and vague,"
Drix observed, his scales unusually dark, a sign of stress rarely displayed by his kind.
"Probability analysis suggests deliberate information control."
Yalar moved to his position at the command table, triggering the neural interface as he settled into place. Immediately, he sensed subtle differences between this system and the modified one he'd grown accustomed to on Earth. The human adaptations had made the interface more intuitive, more responsive. This original version felt clumsy by comparison.
"Will these humans even show up to the battle they've been invited to?"
Kragak demanded, his claws scraping against the table surface.
"Or have they been too busy playing with technology they barely understand?" Analysis of technological transfer. Success suggests minimal combat effectiveness after only one standard year of integration,
Drix added. The neural screens around them displayed technical assessments of presumed human capabilities that were laughably outdated and inaccurate. Yalar paused, carefully choosing his words while accessing the neural interface. He subtly straightened to his full height. "I fear," he said, allowing a deliberate pause, "for our enemies." Kragak barked a harsh laugh while Drix tilted his head in analytical confusion.
"Your time with humans has affected your judgment," Kragak scoffed. "Fear for our enemies? They've merged with several previously neutral systems. Their fleet outnumbers ours by—"
The command neural interface flared with emergency signals, interrupting Kragax's dismissal. Multiple virtual screens materialized showing battlefront data, their edges pulsing with urgent alerts. "Block 2 forces have engaged our forward elements in the Proxima sector," announced a tactical officer, his scales pale with stress. Visual feeds showed a concordant destroyer squadron under heavy attack, casualty reports scrolling rapidly across peripheral screens. Yalar watched Drix rapidly analyzing the incoming data, his black eyes reflecting the shifting displays.
"Forward picket line has been breached,"
Drix reported with uncharacteristic tension in his voice.
"Macrovian dreadnoughts displaying flanking maneuver."
Kragak slammed his fist on the table.
"Where is our counter-attack force? Deploy the Soderian battle groups."
"Second Squadron reporting heavy casualties," the tactical officer continued. "Third Squadron attempting withdrawal." The screens showed concordant vessels being systematically destroyed by superior Block 2 numbers. Their formation was disintegrating under the coordinated assault of Macrovian warships.
"Probability of holding forward position now below 12%, and falling,"
Drix announced, his usual calm calculation giving way to urgency. Kragak turned to Yalar, scales flushed with rage.
"Where are your precious humans, Hitharian? Our forces are being slaughtered." "No detection of Earth vessels in any combat sector,"
Drix confirmed.
"Probability of human engagement with effective time frame approaching 0.
Yalar maintained complete calm, his confidence unwavering despite the crisis unfolding on the screens. "Any moment now. Just wait."
"Wait?"
Kragax's incredulity was palpable.
"Our forward line is collapsing."
Yalar accessed the neural system, subtly adjusting sensor parameters on multiple screens. He knew what to look for, having been briefed by Daniel in those final hours before departing Earth. The virtual screens showed a row of concordant destroyers caught in crossfire, Block 2 forces closing in for the kill. The Macrovian flagship directed a coordinated attack that was systematically eliminating the outmatched concordant vessels. Command staff watched in horrified silence as Allied ships disintegrated one after another. Kragax's scales had paled with shock at the tactical disaster unfolding, while Drix's probability calculations streamed across his personal neural interface, all showing imminent defeat. Then it happened. "Unknown spatial distortion forming at relative coordinates 227-883-104, the tactical officer announced suddenly. A massive fissure opened in space itself, tearing across normal space-time like a wound in reality. The anomaly registered on every sensor in the fleet, sending cascades of contradictory data through the neural network.
"Impossible,"
Drix stated, his voice unusually emotive.
"Space was locked in that area."
"What weapon is this?"
Kragak demanded.
"Are the Macrovians deploying something new?"
Yalar felt his feathers slightly extending in anticipation. Not the Macrovians. From the spatial tear poured hundreds of vessels unlike any design previously seen in concordant records. They emerged like predators from ambush, specialized vessel types with distinctive configurations defying conventional classification. The neural screens struggled to categorize or analyze the human fleet composition. Their designs too far removed from standard galactic naval architecture to be easily identified. The command center fell completely silent as the scale of the human arrival became apparent. Drix stared unblinking at the displays, frozen in unprecedented shock. Kragax's mouth hung open, his tail completely still for perhaps the first time in Yalar's experience. "I did warn you they were underestimated," Yalar said with a slight nod of satisfaction, despite his inner turmoil at the implications of what he was witnessing. The neural screens identified multiple ship classes never before seen in galactic warfare. Disruptor-class vessels immediately targeted enemy communications and sensors. Interceptor swarms, hundreds of single-pilot craft, moved in coordinated patterns that defied prediction algorithms. Hammer-class heavy assault ships with unprecedented shield configurations and no apparent weapons approached the enemy formation. Most unsettling were the Ghost-class vessels that appeared to phase in and out of normal space detection, confounding concordant sensors almost as effectively as they did the enemy's. "Their fleet structure is unique," the tactical officer stated, unable to keep wonder from his voice. Yalar watched as human electronic warfare vessels systematically targeted Block 2 command networks. The enemy coordination visibly deteriorated across tactical displays as Macrovian attempts to re-establish communication links were repeatedly thwarted.
"They're severing combat coordination pathways, one by one,"
Drix observed, his analytical mind already adapting to the new reality despite his initial shock. The human fighter swarms engaged enemy interceptors with devastating efficiency. The virtual screens struggled to track hundreds of simultaneous small unit engagements as human pilots demonstrated maneuvers that should have exceeded biological limitations.
"They are using automated or semi-automated control systems," the tactical officer reported.
"Their fighter craft are achieving 83% kill ratio against Macrovian squadrons,"
Drix calculated, his voice reflecting grudging respect. Kragak leaned forward as the Hammer-class vessels deployed previously unknown weapon technology.
"Those things are targeting the shield frequencies. How did they—"
He fell silent as the realization struck him. The humans hadn't just incorporated concordant technology, they had analyzed it, understood it at a fundamental level, and improved upon it beyond recognition. Block 2 cruisers found themselves suddenly vulnerable, their shields fluctuating and failing within moments as tiny human drones probed and exploited their frequencies. Virtual screens across the command center filled with Block 2 distress signals as Macrovian commanders attempted to reorganize defensive formations. Human forces exploited every gap in enemy lines, with precision timing that suggested extensive preparation.
"Their tactical algorithms are reacting to Macrovian responses in real time,"
Drix noted, his initial shock giving way to professional appreciation.
"They're fighting like they've studied Macrovian tactics for decades,"
Kragak added, his previous contempt replaced by growing respect. As the battle progressed, concordant forces began to rally behind the human offensive line. Soderian battle groups reorganized, and Drixian analytical vessels coordinated with human command ships despite no prior joint exercises. The tactical displays showed an integrated battle management system that humans had developed, facilitating cooperation between species that had never fought together before. Human command vessel is transmitting tactical data to our forces, the tactical officer confirmed. The Ghost-class vessels demonstrated space-folding technology that should have been impossible, appearing behind enemy lines, striking, then shifting position before counterattacks could land. Multiple screens showed confused enemy forces firing at empty space where human ships had been moments before.
This technology contradicts known spatial limitations,
Drix stated, his scales paling further.
Are they manipulating dimensional barriers? Kragak wondered. That's theoretically possible, but was never done successfully.
Apparently, humans don't respect theoretical limitations, Yalar replied, unable to keep a note of pride from his voice. The battle's momentum briefly shifted when enemy forces consolidated around the massive Macrovian mothership. The virtual screens showed enemy reserves being deployed to protect the command vessel, and concentrated fire pushed back human assault squadrons. Macrovian weapon systems caused significant damage to smaller human vessels, and the tactical display indicated a shift as Block 2 stabilized their defenses.
They've rallied, Kragak observed grimly. The Macrovian mothership defense grid is formidable.
Then, a single, massive human vessel detached from the main fleet. Its unusual configuration defied conventional classification attempts, but the energy readings it generated caused Drix to make a sound of disbelief.
Energy readings exceeding known weapon parameters by factor of 12,
he reported. The command center staff watched in anticipation and dread as the human ship accelerated directly towards the Macrovian mothership. The enemy focused all firepower on the approaching threat, and the human vessel's shields began failing under the concentrated bombardment.
They're sacrificing their capital ship in desperation?
Kragak asked incredulously. Observe carefully, Yalar advised softly. The screens showed the human vessel continuing its approach despite catastrophic damage. It penetrated the outer defense perimeter of the mothership, collision appearing imminent on all virtual screens. A massive energy surge was detected moments before impact, and a blinding flash overwhelmed visual sensors temporarily. When the screens cleared, the Macrovian mothership was breaking apart, a catastrophic chain reaction consuming the enemy command vessel from within. Block 2 forces fell into disarray as their command structure collapsed. A communication review appeared on Yalar's personal neural interface. Thanatos drone vessel operation complete. No crew casualties. It was unmanned, Yalar explained, the revelation causing Kragax's jaw to drop. A drone ship.
They sacrificed the capital ship willingly?
Kragak asked, still struggling to comprehend the strategy.
Not a sacrifice if no lives were lost,
Drix pointed out.
Logical, but extreme.
The neural screens showed Block 2 forces beginning a full retreat across all sectors, their cohesion entirely broken by the loss of their command vessel and the unprecedented human tactics. Humans call it asymmetric resource allocation, Yalar explained. They value their people above their technology. As the battle concluded, the neural screens displayed comprehensive analysis. Block 2 had lost 78% of their engaged forces, while concordant losses stood at 31%. Human losses were a mere 22%, and territorial gains exceeded pre-battle objectives by 40%. Block 2 forces were in full retreat across 3 sectors.
This exceeds most optimistic projections by substantial margin,
Drix stated, rapidly processing the implications. The Macrovian command structure was severely compromised, and neutral systems were already sending diplomatic inquiries to the Concordant. Human forces were securing strategic positions throughout the battle theatre with efficiency that belied their supposed inexperience in interstellar warfare.
They've accomplished in one engagement what our strategists projected would take 10.
Kragak acknowledged, studying the territorial displays with new respect.
Probability calculations for overall conflict victory have shifted significantly,
Drix added. Yala observed both former skeptics, now fully comprehending human capabilities, just as he had predicted a year ago in the first War Council meeting. Yet, even he hadn't anticipated the full scale of human ingenuity and adaptation. A neural alert notified them of an approaching diplomatic shuttle the following day. Kragak ordered an honor guard to the reception bay. Unprecedented respect for what had been considered a primitive species just 1 year earlier. The command table configuration automatically adjusted, a 4th position materializing equal in size and prominence to the original 3.
The Council expands,
Drix observed.
Unprecedented.
Daniel entered the command center with calm confidence, wearing formal diplomatic attire with subtle military styling. The command staff cleared a path with newfound respect, and Kragax's posture shifted to acknowledge an equal rather than a subordinate. Daniel approached the command table and took his position at the newly created 4th seat. The neural interface adapted to human biology seamlessly, another human modification that Yala recognized but did not comment on.
The Concordant acknowledges humanity's significant contribution,
Kragak stated formally.
Probability of victory has increased substantially based on demonstrated capabilities,
Drix added. We're just getting started, Daniel replied with a slight smile. My technical teams have already identified some other ways to blow things up in space. Daniel and Yala exchanged a meaningful glance, private understanding passing between them as the virtual screens updated with a unified 4-species command structure. Yala observed the new configuration of the War Council with humans now fully integrated. He felt vindication mixed with lingering concern about humanity's full potential. They had proven formidable allies, but he wondered what would happen when the war ended. Would humanity be content with their new place in the galactic order, or would their extraordinary capacity for improvement lead them to dominance? The real war, and humanity's true capabilities, were just beginning.